February 19th, 2026. Prince Andrew's 66th birthday. Police stormed the Norfolk estate. The arrest warrant was read straight to his face. The charge? Funneling classified documents to Jeffrey Epstein. The news pierced straight into Buckingham Palace. King Charles was counting down the days due to cancer. He could not fend it off. Right in the night, an order transferring all power to Prince William and Princess Catherine was hastily signed. Why did King Charles cover up his brother's crimes for many years? What reason caused the king to toss Queen Camilla aside amidst the boiling oil and burning fire? October 2025. The square in front of Lichfield Cathedral was soaked with rainwater. The cold wind blew open the coats of the crowd gathering behind the metal barriers. Unlike the usual brilliant parades, there was absolutely no applause or waving of flags and flowers. As King Charles stepped out of the armoured Bentley, a group of protesters rushed close to the security fence. They did not wish the king good health. They screamed harsh curses right in his face. Cardboard signs hastily scrawled with words demanding justice were thrown onto the street. The monarchy's approval rating went into freefall, down to the 45% mark, the lowest level in modern history. He walked faster, head bowed low, eyes evading, trying to ignore the fury of the tax-paying citizens. 4 months later, the morning of February 19th, 2026, a line of police cars with no sirens wailing quietly slithered through the iron gates of the royal estate in Norfolk County. The tyres crunched on the grey gravel soaked in fog. Plainclothes officers stepped down, carrying an arrest warrant directly aimed at Prince Andrew, right on the day he was preparing to host his 66th birthday party. At the same time, over 100 miles away from Norfolk, Buckingham Palace still maintained a perfect rhythm. Guards draped in red wool coats changed shifts to the exact second. Tourists packed tightly outside the gilded iron gates, taking photos and marvelling at the dynasty's greatness. The surface of the institution remained calm, majestic, and inviolable. But deep inside the corridors, covered in red velvet carpets, senior secretaries were running in panic. The Jeffrey Epstein stain, the thing the royal family had strived to pour millions of pounds into burying over the past decade, had just been officially dug up. The underground rotting process was complete, and the palace's defence system was collapsing right before the eyes of the king, who was dying on his hospital bed. To understand why this arrest stabbed a fatal knife into King Charles's prestige, you need to understand the operational mechanism of the Royal Intelligence Information System, specifically the red box privilege. Every morning at 7 o'clock, regardless of whether the king is in London or vacationing in the countryside, a red leather box is always brought by senior officers to be placed on his desk. Inside it are not just event schedules, those are top-secret reports from MI5 and MI6. Every telephone communication, every financial transaction via offshore accounts, every sensitive meeting of royal family members is monitored by British intelligence, recorded and reported directly to the head of the dynasty. Imagine the king as the CEO of a giant bank, the only one holding the keys to the security camera room monitoring all employees. If a vice president is discovered laundering money in the company's safe, the CEO has 2 choices. Either he calls the police immediately to clean up the company, or he locks the camera room door, pretends to know nothing, transfers the vice president to another department, and continues paying his salary steadily. King Charles chose the second course of action. The intelligence dossiers clearly recorded evidence of Prince Andrew abusing diplomatic privileges, using the royal name to funnel classified documents to Jeffrey Epstein during the 2010 to 2011 period. The king knew every nook and cranny of the matter, but instead of handing his brother over to the judicial authorities, Charles used constitutional privileges to seal the dossier stack. He only stripped Andrew of his honorary military titles to appease the press. In exchange, he still retained his security privileges, paid millions of pounds in legal fees out of pocket, and allowed his brother to live comfortably in giant mansions. This family protection mechanism once exerted absolute power under the era of closed media. But in the current era of transparency, that cover-up became a legal and moral disaster. When the arrest warrant was issued, the British public did not just look at Andrew as an individual criminal. They looked at King Charles as a complicit accomplice covering up for a criminal. The king's sheltering silence stripped away the final bit of legitimacy of the monarchy, turning a family that was a symbol of standard into a den tolerating crimes. While television stations continuously broadcast images of the police convoy leaving Norfolk, an incredibly tense chain reaction quietly erupted behind the closed doors of the palace. No press releases were issued immediately because the royal family's head apparatus was busy handling core conflicts of interest. The first action took place on the evening of February 17, 2026, which was exactly 48 hours before the arrest warrant was executed. The leader of the London Police Department had secretly sent an advance notification document to the King's office, so the royal family could prepare to handle the crisis. Prince William happened to be present in the office when the secretary brought the report stack in. Skimming through the arrest warrant, William immediately demanded his father sign a decree expelling Andrew from all royal real estate that very night, cutting off all funding completely to salvage the family's honour somewhat. But King Charles, with a body emaciated by the ravages of chemotherapy, brushed it off. He put the notification paper away in his desk drawer, forbade William from taking this information outside, and immediately ordered his private lawyer to prepare a massive budget to bail out his brother. He chose to save his own flesh and blood instead of choosing to protect the throne. The second action exploded right on the morning of February 19th. When the guards at the Norfolk estate opened the gates for the investigation team, Prince Andrew was casually sitting drinking tea in the main living room. The police proceeded straight in, seizing 3 personal laptops and a series of paper documents hidden in the wall safe. Andrew did not resist physically, but he continuously demanded loudly to make a direct phone call to the king for intervention. The police officers flatly refused. They handcuffed the prince, escorting him out to a grey van with no logos parked waiting at the side door, ending the free life of the son who was once most pampered by the Queen. The third action took place just 2 hours after the arrest, and it originated from an unexpected figure. Queen Camilla was at her private office at Clarence House. Instead of keeping a safe distance from the family of the one who had just been handcuffed, she directly picked up the phone to call Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's ex-wife. Camilla dropped words of comfort for Sarah, promising to use every means to influence the king to ensure providing the best criminal lawyer team for Andrew. This call absolutely did not take place on a secure encrypted line. It was made through the central switchboard, and the entire content of the conversation was intercepted by Prince William's technical team, recording everything entirely. For millions of British people, if they knew about this call, they would think Camilla comforting Sarah Ferguson was merely compassionate empathy between women in the same family weathering a storm. Camilla always carefully built the image of a gentle wife, standing outside all core power disputes within the family. But the recording of that intercepted call unmasked a completely different truth, one far darker. Prince William's data analysis team immediately traced backward the Buckingham Palace guest system over the past 2 years. They discovered a terrifying coincidence on the Excel spreadsheets. A series of close business partners, venture capital fund directors who frequently appeared at closed charity tea parties hosted by Camilla herself, turned out to perfectly match Prince Andrew's old client list. Worse, Some names on that list had a history of indirect financial transactions with Jeffrey Epstein's criminal network. Camilla did not call to comfort Sarah Ferguson out of compassionate family affection. She called to reassure, ensuring that Andrew's faction would keep quiet, not spilling the beans about the underground relationship network she was using to consolidate her personal financial power. The Queen Consort was not an outsider soothing a relative. She was sitting in the same life-or-death boat with the one bearing crimes. Why did this dark association push Prince William to a ruthless, power-usurping decision, forcing his father to cast aside the woman he loved most, right at the brink of death? Prince William wanted to restructure the entire British dynasty. He did not look at Buckingham Palace as a family needing to be sheltered. He looked at it as a corporation standing on the brink of moral bankruptcy. William wanted to play the role of a ruthless CEO. He craved a completely sterile apparatus, transparent in all cash flows, and absolutely showing zero tolerance for any individual tarnishing the royal brand. To materialize this cleansing ambition, William immediately struck with two decisive, punitive blows, right in the week Prince Andrew was arrested. The first action aims straight at the financial lifeline. On February 21, 2026, William directly instructed the Duchy of Cornwall Asset Management Office to freeze the annual allowance worth £3 million, originally granted separately to Andrew. He did not go through King Charles's signature. William called the chief financial officer straight away, demanding the account be frozen in just 15 minutes. He blocked the cash flow used to pay for his biological uncle's private legal teams. The second action targeted physical power. Heading into February 23rd, William brought a private security team from Kensington Palace straight to Royal Lodge, the giant mansion where Andrew once lived. He did not knock on the door to talk. William ordered the technical team to revoke all swipe cards, cutting internal data network access rights for the 30 employees working for Andrew. These people were ordered to pack their belongings and leave the premises before noon. William completely wiped out the remnant team that had once served the scandalous uncle. The reason William acted so unfeelingly stemmed from a profound obsession. He grew up witnessing the chaos of covered-up secrets. He saw his mother once isolated by this system. Now he had to witness his father taking the prestige of an entire nation to cover up for someone involved in a sex crime ring. William understood that if he did not use an iron fist to excise this tumour, the throne he was about to inherit would only be a pile of ashes in the eyes of the tax-paying citizens. He would rather trample upon family affection than let the centuries-old institution be buried alongside a sinner. Queen Camilla craved to maintain her own existence. As King Charles grew weaker by the day, the life and death clock of power also began counting down for her. Camilla knew perfectly well her status depended entirely on her husband's breathing. The moment Charles passed away, she would immediately become a widow with no real executive power. She did not want to be pushed to the fringes of the London elite. To survive, Camilla needed to build a solid career insurance network, and she chose to cling to the remaining relationships from Prince Andrew's faction. The first action proving this power-scavenging ambition took place from late 2025. Camilla secretly hosted a series of small-scale gala dinners at the Clarence House residence. The guests were not politicians or diplomats. They were hedge fund directors, real estate brokers who once belonged to the financial sponsorship circle for Prince Andrew. Camilla proactively took over this client list. She used afternoon teas and social handshakes to retain the tycoons, ensuring donation money still flowed into the funds patronized by her, regardless of the fact that Andrew was being investigated covertly. The second action, exposing most clearly Camilla's factional choice, was exactly the disastrous call on the morning of February 19th. Instead of cutting off contact to maintain cleanliness for the palace, she directly picked up the phone to call Sarah Ferguson. She did not just comfort. Camilla offered specific promises about intervening so King Charles would continue funding the legal fund for Andrew. She wanted to prove to Sarah Ferguson's group that she was still a person capable of manipulating the king's decisions. Camilla's goal collided head-on with William's cleansing ambition. William wanted to smash all of Andrew's remnants, chasing shady business partners out the palace gates. Camilla wanted to gather those broken pieces, using the very client base of the sinner to consolidate financial power for herself. Both people were vying for tempered chat control of the royal family's future, but going in two completely opposite directions. The first physical confrontation exploded on the afternoon of February 24, 2026. Prince William stepped through the living room doors at Clarence House. He did not go alone. Accompanying him was the palace's internal security director. Queen Camilla was sitting on the sofa, holding a file, preparing for a weekend charity event. She looked up, offering a familiar diplomatic smile. But that smile was instantly extinguished upon seeing her stepson's icy facial expression. William did not offer greetings. He walked straight to the glass tea table, slamming a stack of documents down hard onto the tabletop. The stack of papers slid, stopping right next to Camilla's teacup. That was the detailed transcript of the call between her and Sarah Ferguson. William stood straight, staring intently into Camilla's eyes. He spoke in an even but steely voice, demanding she explain why she used the king's prestige to promise financial provision for a criminal suspect. Camilla straightened her back. She did not deny it. She chose to use the authority of a superior to extinguish William's outrage. Camilla clasped her hands together, her voice calm. She argued that Sarah Ferguson was panicking, and a family member calling to reassure was completely normal. She emphasized that King Charles was still the head of the family, and he had the right to decide for himself how to support his brother. That justification aimed straight at William's self-esteem. He slammed his hand onto the document stack. He did not talk about emotions. William growled, reading aloud every line of financial support commitment Camilla had spoken in the audio recording. He flatly declared that from this moment on, the Queen Consort's office was no longer permitted to represent the king in any financial decisions whatsoever. Camilla sprang to her feet, her face flushed with anger. She loudly chased William out of the room, threatening to bring this entire matter to Charles's hospital bed. William turned his back and walked away, unconcerned by the threat. This collision tore open the curtain of fake peace, forcing William to unleash the highest punitive blow. Right on the night of February 24th, upon returning to Kensington Palace, William made a ruthless and irreversible decision. He activated Project Integrity. This was not a routine bookkeeping check. William refused to use the royal accounting team. He contracted directly with a top independent forensic audit firm in London, those specializing in handling international economic crime cases. William's order was extremely clear. Review the entire transaction history, guest lists, and private meetings arranged by Queen Camilla's office over the past 3 years. The audit team worked for 48 continuous hours. When the results were placed on William's desk, the truth exposed a horrific network. The names appearing continuously at Camilla's private parties were not just ordinary businessmen. 3 of the billionaires who had sat drinking tea with the Queen Consort turned out to be covert shareholders of shell companies directly connected to Jeffrey Epstein's old financial network. The decision to launch this forensic audit permanently altered the power dynamic. It completely stripped away Camilla's benevolent mask. She was no longer a wife trying to comfort relatives. She was exposed as someone harboring dirty partners right in the center of the palace. Holding this ironclad evidence in hand, William realized he could not just stop at issuing warnings. He had to seize total control immediately. When the future king decides to usurp the throne right while his father is still breathing, how disastrously will Queen Camilla's defense system collapse? The morning of February 26, 2026, 7 days after Prince Andrew was escorted into the police car, the first shockwave did not crash in from the public or the front pages of the press. It exploded right from inside the giant oak doors of Royal Lodge. Princess Eugenie, the youngest daughter who always stood up to defend her father in the past, decided to carry out an act of radical severance. At exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, when the thick fog had not yet completely dissipated over the Windsor lawns, 3 private moving trucks pulled to a halt before the mansion's main doors. Eugenie did not say a single word to her father. She stood with crossed arms in the middle of the grand hall, her eyes coldly supervising the movers packing dozens of cardboard boxes containing all of her family's clothes, documents, and personal belongings. The sound of packing tape ripping echoed dryly. Eugenie continuously pressed the reject button on dozens of incoming calls from her mother, Sarah Ferguson. She carried her young son straight into the black Range Rover, slammed the door shut, and ordered the driver to step on the gas and drive straight out the gates. A biological daughter publicly moving out of the house right in the week her father was entangled in the legal web was a fatal blow to the final shred of prestige of Andrew's faction. His entire family officially shattered right from the inside. But Queen Camilla did not view this incident as a dead end. From the perspective of a woman who had spent half her life surviving among the elite, she saw a magnificent power vacuum and immediately rushed in to fill it. At noon on March 1st, 2026, Camilla dispatched an official car with royal license plates across central London, picking up Sarah Ferguson from a secret safe-house apartment and taking her straight into the side door of Clarence House. The 2 women sat opposite each other in the private reading room beside a steaming hot silver tea set. Camilla continuously picked up the phone to call board members of the 3 largest charities in London. She used a caring but implicitly threatening tone, demanding they absolutely not cross Sarah's name off the patronage list. Camilla was trying to save face for her friend, but simultaneously implicitly asserting to financial partners that she was still someone capable of manipulating internal royal decisions. She was certain that Prince William was too busy dealing with the external press department and neglecting the internal control front. That was a deadly calculation error. William did not neglect a single nook or cranny in the palace. He held tightly in his hand the detailed audit report from Project Integrity and was only waiting for the exact moment to unleash a wide-scale punitive blow. On the morning of March 3rd, William did not bother stepping over to Clarence House to argue face-to-face with Camilla. He aimed straight at the system of underlings serving her. The head of human resources at Buckingham Palace received a red-stamped list manually approved and signed by William himself. 5 senior staff members belonging to the Queen Consort's office were urgently called into a windowless meeting room on the ground floor. There was absolutely no evaluation process or warning taking place. The human resources head placed 5 manila envelopes containing immediate dismissal decisions on the glass tabletop. Their security swipe cards were disabled right on the server system at the same time. 4 large security personnel stepped in, ordering them to pack their personal belongings into cardboard boxes and stood supervising until all were kicked out to the palace's back gates in less than 15 minutes. When Camilla heard the news and frantically called down to the Human Resources Department, her office was already half empty. The people who once helped her schedule afternoon tea appointments, the assistants who once acted as liaisons with investment funds of Andrew's faction, had all evaporated from the system. With this decisive blow, Prince William sent a ruthless message. Anyone trying to maintain Andrew's shady ecosystem will be crushed, regardless of the person standing behind underwriting them being the reigning queen consort. When a series of trusted assistants were fired in the blink of an eye, Camilla understood she could not win against William on the front of internal administrative procedures. She decided she must change direction, using the power of image to counterattack and regain status. She wanted to prove to millions of the public and the entire London elite that she was still the reigning queen consort, the most powerful woman in the kingdom. The most perfect opportunity appeared on March 9th, 2026. The Commonwealth Day commemorative service at Westminster Abbey is always one of the most important events in British diplomatic history, gathering thousands of politicians, ambassadors, and world leaders. Because King Charles had to stay back at the hospital to undergo emergency dialysis, Camilla automatically filled her name into the central position of the event. She demanded tailors work through the night to prepare an extremely striking milky white sheep's wool coat, attaching the largest diamond-studded royal insignia on the chest. She wanted to ensure that every television lens, every front page of major newspapers must be directed at her when stepping through the doors of the ancient abbey. But Camilla had missed an extremely dangerous variable. She did not expect that Princess Catherine had officially awakened and stepped into the crisis management machine. Kate was no longer a wife who only knew how to stand smiling behind her husband's back like before. She had turned herself into a sharp and calculated media weapon. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the Bentley carrying Camilla arrived in front of the Abbey's main doors. She stepped out of the car, offering a radiant smile, raising her hand, preparing to wave to the crowd. But a bizarre scene unfolded. There was absolutely no sound of rapid flashing lights. Hundreds of photojournalists standing on both sides of the barricades were not looking toward her at all. They were glued to their phone screens and frantically turning all lenses in the opposite direction. Less than 50 meters away, the car carrying William and Kate had just pulled to a halt. Kate stepped down in a form-fitting navy blue silk dress, exuding an aura of absolute power and calmness. The detail that changed the entire dynamic lay in the terrifyingly cold timing coordination of the Kensington Palace office. Exactly 1 minute before Camilla stepped out of her car, William and Kate's media department pressed the button to send an emergency press release to the inboxes of all major news agencies in the world. This press release revealed details about a global medical project worth hundreds of millions of pounds, personally chaired by Kate, while attaching medical records announcing her extremely good cancer recovery status. This massive news immediately blew up editorial rooms. Editors-in-chief screamed over walkie-talkies, ordering field reporters to shift all attention to the Princess of Wales. Camilla walked on the red carpet in an unprecedented snubbing by the press. As she stood on the podium to read the opening speech, the majority of reporters had sneaked out into the corridors to take advantage of sending images of Kate back to the editorial offices in time to get on the front pages. The Queen Consort's carefully prepared speech fell into a silent space. No camera sounds, not a single drop of attention. The event ended, Camilla stormed into her car, returning to Windsor Castle with a face flushed with anger. She pushed the door hard, walking straight into King Charles's treatment room. She loudly complained, crying about being publicly humiliated by William and Kate, robbed of attention in front of thousands of international guests. She screamed, demanding the king must step up to reprimand his son immediately. but Charles only lay still on the white mattressed hospital bed. His wrinkled skin was pale under the fluorescent lights. An IV tube was firmly inserted into the back of his bony hand. He squeezed his eyes shut, slowly turning his face toward the window full of grey clouds. The monarch was too exhausted to raise his voice to defend his wife. Right at the doorway, William stood with his arms crossed, silently leaning his back against the wall. He stared at his father's ultimate helplessness and his stepmother's desperate panic. He understood the designated opportune moment was ripe. Camilla's final shell of power had been stripped clean, making way for a cruel administrative sentence that would finish off her entire influence. Following the bitterly humiliating defeat at Westminster Abbey, Camilla fell into a state of utmost panicked defence. She locked her office door tight, continuously ordering the few remaining secretaries to send dozens of dinner party invitation emails to businessmen and investment billionaires. She craved to quickly lock down sponsorships to prove to the internal royal family that she still brought colossal financial value to the palace. But Camilla had no idea that the entire data transmission network in her office, from the email system to the phone lines, was already being strictly monitored in real time by William's cybersecurity team. On the night of April 14, 2026, William donned a black overcoat, carrying a 15-page thick, leather-bound document file as he stepped into King Charles's bedroom. The stack of papers bore the title Joint Advisory Council Charter. The content inside was drafted by the best lawyers, demanding the permanent stripping of the Queen Consort's office's self-determination rights. The charter clearly stipulated that every guest list, every budget expenditure, and every meeting of Camilla must have an approval signature from Prince William's hand. Backed into a corner by the evidence of violating business brokerage by the Camilla faction that William presented, King Charles had no strength left to resist. He picked up the fountain pen. The frail monarch's trembling, broken handwriting signed straight onto the final page, officially transferring his wife's power to his eldest son. Morning of April 15th, 2026, exactly 9 o'clock in the morning. Camilla walked into her office at Clarence House with a teacup in hand. She pulled out her chair and sat down before the mahogany desk. She moved the mouse to wake up her personal computer screen. She needed to send an emergency email to the director of an affiliated charity fund to confirm the schedule for the next week. She typed the familiar password string onto the keyboard. The computer screen slightly stuttered, then a grey notification box popped up, indicating the password was rejected. Camilla frowned, carefully typing each character one more time. This time, the entire screen turned bright red. A line of text displayed a database access error and notified that the account had been locked by the system administrator. She panicked, picking up the desk phone receiver, intending to call the IT department, but the line was completely dead, with no dial tone. Right at that moment, the double doors of the office were pushed wide open to both sides. Prince William walked straight inside. He wore a charcoal grey suit, his face revealing no expression whatsoever. He took long strides on the wool carpet, advancing straight in front of the Queen Consort. William did not say good morning. He placed the paper bearing the royal stamp down onto the glass desk surface. King Charles's signature appeared clearly, the black ink seemingly still wet. Camilla stared wide-eyed at the paper, her throat bone dry, unable to utter a single word. The entirety of the power she had painstakingly built over many years had been swept clean with just a few strokes of a pen. The atmosphere in the office froze solid like an ice vault. Camilla's ultimate outrage choked up in her chest. Prince William took a step back, crossing his arms over his chest. His voice rang out distinctly, evenly amidst the large room, announcing the new rules of survival. From this moment on, the Queen Consort was not permitted to host any private business partners within the royal premises. Not a single expenditure invoice exceeding £500 would be paid by the accounting department if it lacked his signature. Her entire public appearance schedule, speeches, and even her outfits would be directly arranged and strictly censored by the Kensington Palace media department. Camilla slumped down into the leather-upholstered chair. She cast her eyes around the glamorous room. She realized the cruelest reality was crashing down on her head. She still lived in majestic castles, still wore the most expensive designer outfits on her body, still had people bowing their heads to serve 3 meals every day. But she no longer possessed a single shred of authority to dictate her own life. This office, with these precious paintings, had turned into a perfect gold-plated prison. She had become a hostage of power right in her own husband's home, stripped of all weapons to resist the absolute, cold, and ruthless rise of the future king. When executive power has rested completely in William's hands, and King Charles is only waiting for his final breaths, where will the true fate of a queen consort who has lost all power go when the king's funeral takes place? Today, May 28, 2026, Buckingham Palace no longer operates as a traditional royal family. It is functioning exactly like a giant financial corporation, and Prince William is sitting in the CEO chair. At the newly established office at Kensington Palace, the server system runs at full capacity. Every information flow, from invoices paying for main hall decoration flowers to the appearance schedule of each member, goes through William's censorship department. He is not only controlling the present, he is re-reviewing the entire past. The forensic audit team continues digging into the financial ledgers of an entire past decade. A few miles away, at Windsor Castle, King Charles III is living his final days. The treatment room reeks of disinfectant. The monarch's work schedule is completely blank. An unofficial abdication plan has finalized all transfer procedures. Charles relinquishes the throne in practice, leaving behind a colossal power vacuum that his son immediately filled with ironclad governance rules. Queen Camilla still lives at Clarence House. She wakes up every morning, wears expensive designer outfits, and eats meals prepared by royal chefs. But her office is deserted. There is no ringing of telephones, there is no assistant walking in to report guest lists. Her weekly schedule is now sent over by a low-level staff member from William's office. She appears at public events in the capacity of a harmless symbol. She smiles for the cameras, waves to the crowd, then quietly steps into the car dispatched by Kensington Palace to return. The only actual power she still retains is choosing the menu for her own dinner. Meanwhile, Prince Andrew is currently completely isolated from all security and financial privileges. He has to work with his defense lawyer team in an outsourced office. Affiliated bank accounts are frozen. His presence in the palace's history is being wiped clean at the speed of emotionless administrative command lines. This ruthless transfer of power leaves giant voids in how the dynasty will continue to exist. From an institutional governance perspective, is William salvaging the throne by turning it into a transparent organization? Or is he destroying the very nature of family cohesion that is the thing making the public empathize with the monarchy? When King Charles officially passes away, will William let Queen Camilla find a quiet standing spot for herself within the royal family? Or will he turn her into a lonely widow, completely expelled from the castles she once mastered? Looked at from a moral perspective, King Charles's silence poses an extremely tricky problem about loyalty. The cover-up of the intelligence dossier for many years stemmed from biological affection dedicated to his brother. But when you wear the crown on your head, is putting family above the supremacy of the law a crime against the tax-paying citizens? Will a king who tolerates the wrongdoings of his own flesh and blood be judged by history as a benevolent relative or someone covering up for a criminal abusing power? On the financial front, how much destructive power does the Project Integrity dossier that William is holding actually possess? The underground brokerage network connecting Queen Camilla's underlings with Jeffrey Epstein's old partners certainly does not just stop at a few names. If this forensic audit publishes all its data, How many politicians, how many investment billionaires in London will be dragged into the legal vortex? Will William use this dossier to perform a surgery cleaning up the entire British elite? Or will he keep it secret as an underground blackmail weapon to ensure no one dares to challenge the power of his new reign? Is Prince William stripping his stepmother of all her power right while his father is dying a legitimate self-defense move to clean up the institution? Or is it actually just a personal revenge borrowing the name of transparency? Type your perspective straight down in the comments section below. Do you side with a ruthless but principled new king, or a stepmother struggling to find a way to survive? Hit the channel subscribe button right now so we can continue delving deep into closed meeting rooms where the elite and billionaire families purge each other using methods that never appear on daily news bulletins.